Welcome to the Discover podcast, where we view faith as a discovery journey with Jesus to help you become the person God created you to be. Well, hey, everybody, welcome back. This is season 2 of the Discover podcast, and I'm really excited to have Rob Johnsen, a good longtime friend from my camp days, join us on our podcast. Rob, why don't you say hi and give a little introduction of who you are, and then we'll talk about how we know each other and how long we've known each other and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Rob Johnsen, like Bryce said. Grew up in Connecticut, live in PA now, and I'm a pastor there. I'm married to my wife, Becca. We've been married for 22 years, and we have 3 kids. Bella, 21, Caleb, 19, Emma, 17. So life is a little crazy, and we're kind of moving into a bit of a new season right now with kids moving out and trying to figure out what that looks like now. But just super excited to be here, and can't wait to tell you some stories about Brian.
Yeah. You probably know more than some. So I also see that you're wearing a Red Sox hat. My buddy,
I am.
Ben Fawcett, who I don't know if he even listens to our podcast. He goes to our church. I don't know if he tunes in, but he would be really excited to hear that you're wearing a Red Sox hat. So
I like this guy a lot.
Yeah. He's a likable guy. He's a lot of fun. You'd enjoy him.
Well, all of us Red Sox fans are likable guys. So.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Somebody asked me today if I'm a Brewers fan, and I just found myself like not even thinking about it. I was like, oh yeah, I am a Brewers fan, which just shows how far I've come from living in New Hampshire, growing up.
No doubt.
And I don't identify as a New Englander anymore. I'm a Milwaukeean. And you're in Pennsylvania. Did you say that? Maybe you said
yes.
that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you do at your church and the role that you serve there.
Our church is LCBC, which stands for Lives Changed by Christ. I've been attending this church for 21 years, but only came on staff recently, about 2.5 years ago. And so my role is a campus pastor. And what that means is we have multiple campuses, started with one campus and needed to expand. And so launched a second one, then a third, and now we're at 25. So very large church, one of the largest on the East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah. The way that you described it to me this summer, part of why we're having this conversation is because you and I reconnected at Camp Spofford, not the first time, hopefully not the last time that's happened. And I forget if it was the way you said it, or I listened to a podcast, Carey Nieuwhoff's podcast. Your lead pastor was on his podcast, which people at our church, if you don't know who Carey Nieuwhoff is, he's just got a very large church leadership podcast. And maybe it was you or Carey said it's the largest church in America that you've never heard of, right?
Yep.
Because it's like, it's not one of those big name, large churches, but it is very large.
Yeah. It is very large. I think we're averaging around 22,000 a weekend. So it is very large. But it's focused on introducing people to Jesus, and focused on, the local church and the local communities. We are growing our digital platform. And so that is, you probably will start seeing a little bit more of us. But the focus will always be the local church and getting into our communities.
Yeah.
So,
and not that this is about numbers, because knowing you well, like you are the guy who's the least interested in trying to be impressive with, hey, I'm a pastor of a large church or blah, blah, blah. I mean, knowing you from our camp days, you just have a very different perspective about you. And actually, before we talk a little bit more about your story and how you became a pastor, because that's really what I wanted to hear today. Again, you and I reconnected again at camp this summer, and somewhere along the way, I just saw on Facebook in the last couple of years that you had made this shift to be a pastor. And I was like, oh, I want to hear that story. And so this is me for the first time actually getting to hear that story. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about, just so people have some context of our relationship from what would be 25 years ago or so. Just tell from your vantage point, just what you remember of us working together at this camp in New Hampshire, and maybe
Yeah.
tell a bit of how you landed there and when you started working there and what we did together.
Yeah. So, have you talked about Camp Spofford on this
Yeah, some
podcast?
people hear camp stories on occasion, and
Yeah,
then when I speak at camps here and there, and I always talk about this camp in New
this
Hampshire I used to go to and work at. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, camp has a very special place in my heart, always will. It is to date my favorite place on the planet. And so Brian and I had the incredible opportunity of working there during the summers, back in high school and into college. And, so I did not attend Camp Spofford as a camper. Brian, did you?
yeah. Well, 1 or 2 years, and then I
Yeah.
started.
Okay. So I had no reference. Um, what attracted me to camp was I had cousins that were on staff there,
Mhm.
and they lived in North Jersey, so we'd see them at Christmas, and it's Christmas, and they're just yapping about Camp Spofford. And year after year, Spofford, Spofford, Spofford. And I'm like, what is wrong with them? It's Christmas. They're 6 months removed from camp. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And so finally I was like, well, either I'm annoyed by them for the rest of my life or I find out what this is all about. And so,
And that's kind of the way it goes with camp people who really love their camp.
oh,
They
yeah,
just talk about their camp, and if you're not a part of it, you're like, "Stop it! Like, I don't get
yeah,
it. It makes no sense."
that's
Yeah,
100% true. And I will not attempt to explain camp to you because you can't.
right.
You just have to experience it. But yeah, so I applied and somehow they hired me without knowing me, um and I got on the counseling staff. So I was working with campers and I absolutely fell in love with it. Had just the greatest experience of my life. And Brian, I don't believe you started on counseling staff, correct?
Correct. I worked in the kitchen, and then
Yeah.
I was worked on the kitchen for a couple years, and then counseling staff, and then I did was like a head of staff after that.
Yeah, and so here I am on the counseling staff, and I'm meeting Brian, I'm meeting Dan, I'm meeting a bunch of guys, and I start recruiting for counseling staff because I'm like, this is where it's at. This is what you guys need to do. And so one by one, they started coming over to counseling staff, and it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, we just had so much fun.
So you would have been a counselor how many years there? How long did you work there?
So I was on staff 4 summers. I was a counselor in training 2 summers, a counselor 1 summer, and then I was Explorer director.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And so you and I overlapped on counseling staff just 1 year. We were there for multiple years together,
Yes.
but
Yep.
on counseling staff together just 1 year. The last role I served was like a counselor for the staff members who were
Yeah.
there. And so, yeah, just tons of fun. We could tell stories for hours about
4 hours.
camp memories and things and pranks and hijinks and yeah, all kinds of stuff. Um, but what I would really love to hear is the journey you were on in becoming a pastor. So what we're emphasizing in this like second season of our podcast, we're calling it On the Move, and specifically talking about how God is on the move in our lives
Hmm.
all the time, and God is leading us all the time, and God's inviting us into new adventures all the time. He's always on the move, and when we are faithfully walking with Him, we get to be on the move with Him. Sometimes that comes in very like simple, mundane, everyday life sorts of ways. Other times it comes by way of very big life changes. And that's been the case for you over the last couple of years because you have not been a pastor all that long.
That's right.
Yeah. How long did you say you've been a pastor?
2.5 years.
Yeah. So
Two and a half years.
tell us what you were doing
Yeah.
before that, and just kind of take us on a quick high level vocational journey of your years before.
Yeah. So high level vocational. Um, I found myself without a plan. I had a plan. The plan fell through, and found myself doing what came naturally, which was construction. And so not really what I wanted to be doing, but I found that it was what I was good at, and it was what I needed to do to provide for my family. And so, my journey was 6 years in residential construction, building homes, additions, all aspects of that. And then wound up in the cabinetry business, and which I loved the intricacy of it, and ended up being in cabinetry for 16 years, starting with just a benchman learning the trade to when I left that career, I was the vice president of a very successful cabinet company.
So 16 years building cabinets. Probably at the end, you weren't actually building cabinets. You were overseeing the operations and all
That's
sorts of other
correct.
things. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I missed being out there for sure.
So you just said that you had a plan and the plan fell through.
Yeah.
How comfortable are you telling us what that plan was that ended up falling through?
No, I'm an open book.
Mm.
So yeah, I just real quick grew up in a Christian home, very supported by my parents, and had a very strong church, very strong youth group. And I think around seventh or eighth grade, uh, you know, it I believe that's when my calling started. And I just got to the point in my faith where okay, this is now my own. It's not my parents' faith. And if I'm all in on this thing, why wouldn't I want this to be my vocation? Why wouldn't I want to spend my life introducing more and more people to Jesus? And so that was my pursuit. That was my goal. I didn't know exactly what it looked like because I wasn't sure about the whole preaching thing.
Mhm.
But I knew that I wanted to do this with my life. And so obviously, what's the next step? Well, you go to Bible college. And um, so I spent my high school years taking it seriously. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to succeed in that. And so took it very seriously. However, the little caveat to that was my break from all those tough classes was going to woodshop.
Mm.
Uh, so that's an interesting correlation there, that
Yeah.
my moment in the day where I could just sort of let loose and just do what came very naturally was going and smelling like sawdust. And
Was this in high school even?
this was in high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, graduated from high school, ended up going to a very small program out in Wisconsin called
Yeah.
the Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Yep. The Wisconsin Wilderness Campus, which was a part of then Philadelphia College of Bible,
Yeah.
which is now Cairn University.
Mhm.
And the best single year of my life out there.
Yeah.
Just an
Remem-
incredible program.
Do you remember what camp you were at in Wisconsin?
So it was Lake Owen Camp,
Okay.
which was during the summer was an X Games camp slash gymnastics camp.
X Games,
So,
like ESPN X Games?
yep,
Interesting.
yep. And so the whole year we had full accessibility to all the ramps, all the jumps, it was pretty ridiculous.
It's funny to me living in Wisconsin now, growing up in New Hampshire, going to Spofford, and hearing all of these Philadelphia people talk
Yeah.
about going to Wisconsin for a year. Like Jim Larson did it. I know
Yep.
you did it. Who else would have done
Oh
it?
my gosh. Britta went,
Yep.
Graham Thorpe went,
Yep. Yep. Graham.
Daryl went, Daryl
Yep.
Benjamin.
Yeah. So it's just so funny. And now I'm in Wisconsin.
Yes, you are.
And actually, this is the first time anybody's ever told me the name of that camp, because there's a lot of programs like that that
Yeah.
have, year-long residencies for college age
Sure.
students. So,
Yep.
yeah, it's cool for me to connect the dots and be like, hey, now I'm in Wisconsin. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so did that for a year, met my wife out there. Um, so obviously the best year of my life.
Yeah, of course.
And so, yeah, just a highlight, mountaintop experience, all Bible classes, so just in it, challenged, loved every second of it. So naturally you go back to main campus, and as a freshman, I skipped all the gen eds and went straight to all the Bible classes out there. And so sophomore year, I find myself doing intro to English and all the nonsense that comes with a college degree. And I am now in North Philly and not Cable, Wisconsin. And I I plummeted.
Mm,
I struggled desperately and got to the point where I just knew I didn't know what I was supposed to do, but I wasn't supposed to be there. And um and so I ended up leaving school and heading back. I grew up in Connecticut, heading back to Connecticut. Um my now wife and I were dating at that point. She was also feeling all those feelings. So she went home as well, and she lived in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
mhm,
And so here I am as 19, 20-year old and thinking, oh my word, did I just ruin what God's doing?
mm,
Like, did I just screw up the plan?
mhm.
'Cause my plan was to go to Bible college, go on to seminary, and go into ministry somehow. And clearly that's God's plan. And
Right.
so I just screwed it all up.
Mm,
And so, I went into a deep depression. I spent months and months and months just working through that, going to counseling, doing all the things. Um, but in the meantime, I'm 20 years old and I've got to do something.
mm,
And so that's when I fell back to, okay, this is what comes very naturally,
yeah,
and started building houses. And um, that was, like I said, it was not the plan.
yeah.
And it was not the plan to do that for a long time. And 22 years later, I was still doing it.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it interesting how when you're 20 years old, and I can remember this when I was 19, 20, like there's this pressure that like I've got to get life figured out. Like
Oh, yeah.
I've got to know, I've got to be on the track, I've got to be on the path, I got to be making those steps because like I can't screw this up. But now here we are in our early 40s, and I look back, I'm like, man, there's so many things that you could do and restart and try again. But when you're in that stage of life, there's
Oh,
just
my gosh.
pressure of like I've got to get it right now.
And I feel like, and maybe this is a generational thing, Bri, but I feel like our parents didn't talk about that.
Mm, hmm.
And other mentors of ours, like I talk to my kids now, like that's the age my kids are at right now.
Yeah,
And we have conversations where, listen, yeah, you got to pick a major, but understand that the vast majority of people in the US today are not using the degree they have.
totally.
So yes, be wise, but at the same time, don't put so much pressure on yourself that you find yourself just stagnant.
Totally.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Because I look at, okay, here you are now in your early 40s, and probably you are probably right at 40 when you made this major life change. I mean, I look at my dad. My dad's a pastor now. He was not a pastor growing up, and this is not the podcast to say everybody should have their mid to late life crisis and become a pastor, but my dad in his
Oh,
50s.
that's not what we're doing? Okay.
Yeah. Restart, right? But it's just like you live long enough, and not that I would even say I've lived that long, but like you just live a couple decades and you're like, oh yeah, when you're in your 20s are great and you can do great things, and some people get on that path, but if like you're not there, you've got time
Yeah,
to refigure it out, even when you're 40, and that's okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. So take us on the journey then. You go to college, you don't finish college, you go and swing a hammer for a couple decades. Start to take us through the process of this call from being a cabinet maker to a pastor, which hey, Jesus was a carpenter, so you actually weren't that far away all
I
along.
was, that I was just didn't even realize it. I was just following Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. So here's the cool thing. The calling never left. The calling never left. That was the cool thing, but it was also the frustrating thing
Yeah.
because for years and years and years, I did not allow myself to be content. I was never living in the moment. I was never, this is a stepping stone to what I should actually be doing. And that left me miserable. It left me questioning virtually every day. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? God, what are you doing? I mean, hundreds and hundreds of prayers of, Lord, if you put this on my heart, I didn't put this on my heart. You put this on my heart. So why aren't you allowing me
Mm.
to be doing what you've called me to do? And I just prayed that over and over and over again. And I tried to force it, Bri. I was jumping at opportunities that were in front of me that, all right, Lord, well, maybe maybe I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe I'm not seeing what you're putting out in front of me that, oh, I'm supposed to chase after this thing. And so I went after multiple opportunities, a couple of them that I'll just highlight. One, we were months away, just a couple months away from picking up and moving our family to Kenya.
Mm.
The conversations with the organization were in full swing. Like we're starting to sell our stuff. Everything is in place, and leadership changed at the organization. The new leadership didn't want to spend money on what they had, the role that they had for me, and so the bottom dropped out. Like they pulled the carpet out from under, and we are no longer going to Kenya. And I am telling our kids, hey, remember how we were talking about moving to Africa? We're not doing that anymore. And just gut wrenching, absolutely gut wrenching. And then kind of the culmination and the turning point for me was actually circling back to Camp Spofford. The role of executive director came up,
Yeah.
and I applied for that, and felt like, all right, Lord, this is what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
This is the thing. And I applied for that, and got through part of the process, and did not get the job. And this other guy did,
Dan.
who happened to be one of my best friends.
Dan.
And
Dan.
uh if it's not me, Lord, then I'm glad it's Dan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Dan was the right man for the job.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question that Dan was the right man for the job. But
You would
that
you would have
night,
been great at it too. You would have been great at
thank
it.
you, Bri.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. But that night, I went for a walk with the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll tell you what, the psalmist had nothing on what I had told the Lord. Like, we had a very candid conversation, and I mean, I can tell you the
Four-letter words,
exact spot.
maybe.
There were some words. There were some construction world words. But that night, I say I gave up.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was is I just released it. I gave it up to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I've been trying to do this thing. I've been trying to force myself into ministry, which is obviously a terrible idea. But I've gone after the things that I feel like you have put in front of me, and I have pulled my family along on this journey. And one time the journey was leading toward Africa, and that fell through. Now we're talking to our kids about moving to New Hampshire, and that fell through. And I said, Lord, I'm not going to do this anymore. If you want me to do something different, then I need you to either throw the door wide open so that there is no doubt, or I need you to lock the door behind me so that there is no doubt. But I'm giving it up to you and just letting you take it from here. And I'm not going to say that it was instantly like, oh, my heart has changed and my entire mindset has changed from that night forward. But that was a turning point for me. And it allowed me to be okay with where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
and to find contentment in where I was at. And that was incredibly pivotal, because at that point in my career, um, I had started with an up and coming company, very small. When I started with them, there were 4 of us
Mhm.
total, and um, it was 100% custom cabinetry, very high end, very niche market, and um, but it was chaos. There was no organization to the company. It was, just very chaotic. And I came in and just saw where we could make improvements, where communication could be better, organization could be better, better quality control. And so the owner of the company, was same age as I am. He was also a believer, and so we were just on this path together of just excited about what the future could hold, and so we just did this journey together. And so for the next 10 years, that's where I was at. And um and it was no longer a job for me. It was a passion of mine, and the Lord just opened my eyes to, yes, I've given you this talent to work with your hands, but your heart is for people.
Mhm.
And so as I moved more and more and more into management, and the company grew and grew and grew, and I was less and less in the shop and more managing people, managing jobs, managing clients, all those things, I realized, man, I just love people, and I love working with people, and I love the dynamics, and I love helping people,
Mhm.
and helping them grow and putting them in positions where they thrive. And that just became such a passion of mine. And so over the years, the company continued to grow. I hired everybody on the team. I loved the hiring process, absolutely loved it. And just reimagining things. And so over the 10 years, we became one of the premier cabinet shops on the East Coast.
Mhm.
Um, we were, uh, it's just to put things in perspective. We did a house that we did 63 rooms of cabinetry in one house. So
How
that's the kind
how
of,
many houses are out there that actually have 63 rooms?
well, at that point you're making up names of
Right.
rooms, because there's only so many rooms. But it was, we had 22 guys, Brian, that were artists in their own right.
Yeah, yeah.
They were passionate about what they did, and none of them were there for a paycheck. They
Sure.
were all there because of the passion they had for their skills, because of the passion they had for each other. It was a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And toward the end, I actually um, hired my daughter,
Oh,
because she was thinking about becoming an architect. And I said, why don't you come work for me and learn some skills first and see if this is what you love? What is
mhm.
this a passion before you commit to, I'm going to do 5 years of college, I'm going to do an internship, all these things. So she came and worked for me, and it was like she had 22 uncles. I mean, it was amazing.
That's
And so ironically, my church came to me in those years and said, "Hey, we'd like for you to come on staff."
mm,
And total, role reversal, I actually turned them down.
how about that? Where a few years
Because,
prior, you probably woulda, like, jumped at it.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I would have been like, "I'm out of here."
Yeah.
And here the Lord just gave me such contentment, and such a passion for where I was and what I was doing and what he was doing through me. Um, that I actually, it was like, you know what, guys, this isn't the right time.
Hmm.
And Which, I mean, I just remember sitting there with my wife and just being like, I can't believe I'm going to say no to this.
Yeah.
And so it was, like I said, that night when the Lord had a conversation, when we had a conversation, it was just such a turning point,
Mhm.
of just releasing what I thought I needed to control. And as soon as I just gave him control and said, all right, Lord, I can't do this anymore. I can't take my family through this. I can't emotionally myself go through this. Um, that's when he just allowed me to see what it was I had right in front of me.
Yeah.
And, really actually the mission I had, um, right in front of me.
Yeah.
And so, uh, so then how did I then become a pastor?
Yeah, let's hear that because I'm sitting here thinking like, you get this job put in front of you and you turn it down and you have this sense of contentment which you haven't
Yep.
experienced in a long time. And then yeah, what? So tell me that.
Yeah. So like I said, years go by. I'm at this company for 10 years. It's growing. It's, huge successes. So much fun. And, at that point, like I said, I had hired everybody on the team. It was truly like a family. And so I'm super happy, love what I'm doing. Don't get me wrong. There were times it was very stressful.
Sure.
But
63-room house. Yeah, that's got to be some stress.
there, working with very wealthy people can
Right.
at times be challenging. But loved it. In the meantime, the owner and I, started having different visions for the direction the company was going in. And so, like I said, we were like brothers. And, with that, we loved each other like brothers and we fought like brothers.
Mm.
And so, the whole crew knew, as soon as the door closed, we're just going to let
Right.
that be.
Yeah.
And so that relationship continued to grind, continued to butt heads. Um, and, um, and so there's a lot of details there that I won't go into, but it got to the point where, my stress level was through the roof.
Mm.
And, I'd actually, in just a few month period, I'd actually lost 30 pounds, um, unintentionally,
Mhm.
just because of the stress of it all. And so I, got to the point, I remember it was, Thanksgiving weekend. It was just sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. And as awful and hard the decision was, I decided it was time for me to part ways. Um, like I said, I hated making that decision. But I realized, you know, my number one priority at this point in life was being a father and raising our kids. And I said to my wife, I can't do that if I have a heart attack and die.
Mm.
And so I made the decision that it was time to go. And again, super hard. I mean, at this point, my daughter's working there, Brian.
Yeah.
Like it was awful,
Yeah.
awful, awful, awful making this decision. But the wisdom of my wife told me to, to go talk to one of our pastors about it. And so, a dear, dear friend of mine, Matt Parks, is one of our pastors. And I went to him and he's a Georgia boy,
Mm.
super Southern, very dramatic, very loud. And so, so I get together with him and, so he knew all the history and I said, all right, Maddie, I've decided it's time to go. It's time to move on and do something different. And what I want to talk about today is how do I leave well?
Yeah.
How this is not a 2-week notice,
Sure.
walk out the door. This is, I've been very involved in,
Whatever that word
um,
is. Yeah.
yep, growing this thing. And, so help me talk through how do I walk away and do it really well? And he said, dude, you got to come work for us. I'm like, Maddie, this is not, I'm not even thinking about what's next.
Right.
Like, that's not even on my radar at this point. And understand there was a time in our life and marriage where Becca was staying at home with the kids. I was, the sole breadwinner. We're beyond that now. So I'm at a point in life where Becca's working full time, where I can walk away from a job and figure out what I'm going to do.
Yep.
So I'm laying this all out for him, and I'm like, so that's what I need. And he's like, dude, you got to come work for us. I'm like, this is not what we're talking about. And so finally I get him on board with the conversation. We have the conversation, and, he pastors me. He helps me talk through how to walk away and how to do it well. And the next day, I've got texts coming from our senior pastor. I've got texts coming from our head of all campus pastors, and they're saying, we got to have a conversation. We got to have a conversation. So, so I start having conversations with them, and, at that point it was just conversations. It wasn't interviews or anything like that, but it was conversations, and weeks are going by, and I'm navigating this, trying to figure out how and when I'm going to tell my boss that I'm going to be quitting, and I'm going to give you this much time, and I want to help you, set everybody up for success. And again, we are at odds. We're battling. And he calls me into his office one day, and he said, okay, can you give me an update on where we're at with everything and where the projects are at? And so I go through the whole list and talk about where we're at with everything. And he said, okay, thank you. I've decided it's time for us to part ways. And I just sit across the desk from him, just in shock. And I said, wait, are you firing me? And he said, yeah, I'm firing you. You have 30 minutes to get your stuff out.
30 minutes?
Yeah. And I kept it together. But it was a moment that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And so I walk out of his office, and I go out into the shop, and I tell a couple of the guys, and they're in shock. And so they come in and help me pack up my office. My Bella, my daughter, comes in. She's in tears, helping me pack up my office. At this point, of course, word has spread throughout the shop, and we take my stuff and we walk out into the parking lot, and we all stood in a circle and just wept together. It was incredibly hard.
I bet.
Incredibly hard. And I got in my truck and I drove away. And now here's the fun part, Bri. So that was 3:30 in the afternoon. I had a meeting scheduled with one of the guys from LCBC for 4:30. And I called him up and I said, hey, we can still get together, but I need you to know that you're going to get a real raw version of Rob Johnsen, because I just got fired, which was really hard to say.
Yeah.
But he said, Rob, we don't have to do this today. Like, I was like, listen, I'm doing okay. I'm literally already driving to the location that we're going to meet. You're driving. Like, let's just go ahead and have the conversation, and we'll just do it. He's like, okay. So I get there, he gets there, and, for a half hour, he just loves on me, just pastors me, just helps me start processing this thing. And then he looks at me and he says, okay, so now we can either talk about what I wanted to talk about, or we can just call it a day and we can talk about it another time. And I'm like, no, I'm doing all right. Let's go ahead and talk about what you wanted to talk about. And he looks at me and he said, great, I want you to launch a church for us. And I just stared at him. And I realized in that moment that in 1 hour's time, the Lord had closed the door and locked it.
Yep.
And threw open another one.
Yeah.
And just truly one of the hardest moments of my life. But basically a culmination of 22 years of the Lord preparing me.
Yeah.
And my plan, he just kind of chuckled at,
Yeah.
and he had a plan in mind. So by no means um, was it an easy process.
Yeah.
I will tell you that getting fired at 40 years old rocked me to the core. Uh,
Even though you had, like, made a decision yourself, like, "Hey, I'm done here."
yep.
Yeah.
Even though, and I am unbelievably grateful to the Lord for helping me make that decision in advance,
Totally.
because had I not, and this was even more blindsiding to me, that would have been much worse. And
Yeah.
it was bad enough as it was,
Yeah.
because,
Well,
right, I'll just say, like, I questioned who I was. I
yeah.
questioned my leadership ability. I questioned, like, it rocked me.
Yeah.
It rocked me. However, the fact that he locked the door behind me was critical, because over the next 6 months to a year, as I'm sitting in rooms with guys with their doctorates, and I'm like, I'm just a dumb cabinet maker.
Mhm.
Like, the devil's just back here saying,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be here. You're not worthy of sitting at this table. The Lord was saying, I closed that door. You have to go through this door.
Yeah.
So take courage.
Mhm.
Do not be afraid,
Mhm.
because I command you not to be afraid, and you just follow me through this door.
Yeah.
And so that's how I became a pastor, Brian.
That is so good. That is such so when we were at camp, you're like, "Oh, I gotta tell you the story," and I was like, "Yeah, let's talk," and we never got a chance to talk until the last day. We're like, "Oh, let's do this," and that is a story. I mean, that is unreal. From, like, having this 7th grade, 8th grade intuition of this is what I'm supposed to do, having to wait nearly 30 years to see it come to fruition, to walk this very strange path of, college and Wisconsin and construction, and yeah, I mean, and in some ways, like, again, this goes back to this idea of when you're in your 20s, you perceive people who are in their early 40s, they're like, "You've got one foot in the grave," right? And now, like, now that
Right?
now that we're in our 40s, I'm like, "I'm just getting started,"
Yeah.
right? Like, the adventure for you is, like, another
Oh
25
my gosh.
years, and it's like you're just getting started, and that's an amazing place to be, because here you are in this new chapter, but you've got all kinds of crazy great experience,
Yep.
highs and lows to
Yep.
pull from.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And listen, would I choose to go back?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Right.
Like, it was hard, incredibly hard. Um, But, something that I often refer back to is, as you're reading the Bible, and nothing happens fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most increments of time are 40 years
Yeah.
or 400 years.
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow,
Yeah.
when the Israelites are walking through the wilderness for 40 years.
Yep.
I only did 22, and it was brutal,
Right.
you
Right.
know. But to your point, he is always on the move. He
Yeah.
is always working.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to see.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's impossible to see, but you have to believe that he is, because I promise you that he is.
Yeah. So, from your own life story, right? So
Yeah.
as you think about this journey you've been on, and we'll kind of wind down with this. Um, what would you say to somebody who finds themselves in that position of whether a measure of discontent, or they've kind of seen this, what perceives to be a dream, a calling, maybe come and go, and they think to themselves, yep, that was once, but I missed it, and here I am. What would you say to them, given what you have experienced over the last 5 years?
Yeah. I'd like to think that if somebody told me what I'm about to say, that I would have heard it and been like, that's brilliant. I am going to be patient and content and just wait on the Lord. That is so much easier to say than to do,
Yeah.
for sure. But what I will say is, the Lord has you right where you are for a reason. There's no doubt in my mind. It is not a mistake that you are where you are at.
Mhm.
And he has given you opportunities right where you're at. The question is, are you in tune enough to recognize those opportunities?
Mm.
And are you getting out of your own way to take those opportunities? And, whether you're flipping burgers at McDonald's or you're a CEO in Manhattan, you have opportunities to serve the Lord right where you're at.
Yeah.
And, and so be cognizant of that, be watching for that, be in tune to see what the Lord is putting in front of you, to see the conversations that you are having. Just be in tune to what they're saying and what opportunities the Lord is giving you. Um, here's the other thing I'll say. I had the opportunity, and I need to look up his name because I can't remember it, but I had the opportunity to meet a guy who is one of the premier mountain climbers of our generation. He has climbed all of the highest peaks all over the world. He's hiked to the North Pole and he's hiked to the South Pole. He has done all the big challenges he has done. And I thought, man, this guy is going to be larger than life. This guy is going to be just the man. And I met him and I realized, my word, he is one of the most boring people I've ever met in my entire life. And he said to me, Rob, getting to the top of Everest is a huge accomplishment. All it takes to get there is putting one foot in front of the other over and over and over again. And he said, you just have to have the discipline and you have to stay focused on the goal. And it's super boring, but in the end, you accomplish great things.
Interesting.
And man, I was just like, oh, that sucks. Like, I don't want to do boring.
Right.
I don't want to just follow and obey and do the things that the Lord is putting in front of me. I want to be at the peak.
Yeah.
I want to get to the top, the summit. Sometimes the Lord just puts these things in front of us that we just need to be disciplined and take one step after another.
That's great. Yeah.
And so that's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, one, this has been really fun for me just to hear this story. I still can remember the Facebook post where you kind of announced it to the world. Not that you got let go, but that you were becoming a pastor. And I was like, whoa, what happened in Rob's life that he's doing this? I can't wait to hear the story. Here we are a couple of years later, finally getting to hear the story. And what an encouragement to, in the ups and the downs, to continue to keep your eyes on the Lord and continue to trust that He's in the process working with you to bring you to whatever place He has for you. And if you follow Him along the way, you'll find that He'll continue to show you whatever that next boring step is or that next exciting step. And the thing that I keep telling people is that the adventure in your life isn't necessarily all the wonderful things you get to do. It's that you get to do them with God, whether it's, again, swinging a hammer or being a pastor or anything in between. So really appreciate you joining us today. And thanks so much for taking the time and connecting and sharing your story.
Absolutely, Bri. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, until next time, everybody, we will see you here again on the Discover podcast, and have a great rest of your week.